everyone, and welcome to the Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. The National Democratic leaders are regretting the day they ever mentioned the word God or religion or steered a course for those values voters that sank John Kerry in 2004. And here's the problem. The split second they start prattling on about God and faith and religion and values, all a big smokescreen by the way, that nasty topic of abortion comes up. This is exactly why they have deliberately avoided the topic of religion on the campaign trail for 30 years. Obama found that out at Saddleback with his infamous above my pay grade, profoundly stupid answer, an answer he's now backpedaling on. Nancy Pelosi has been excoriated by no less than 24 U.S. Catholic bishops for lying about church teaching on abortion when she was on Meet the Press. And now comes Joe Biden, self-described devout Catholic, with the blood of millions of babies still dripping from his hands. It's time for the U.S. bishops to rev up again. Biden also lied through his dentures about church teaching regarding when life begins. NBC News anchor Tom Brokaw started the line of questioning on this weekend's Meet the Press.
If Senator Obama comes to you and says, when does life begin? Help me out here, Joe, as a Roman Catholic. What would you say to him?
I say, look, I know when it begins for me. It's a personally and private issue. For me as a Roman Catholic, I'm prepared to accept the teachings in my church.
All right, two things here. One, when life begins is not a personally and private issue. It's a scientific fact. When life begins is no more a private issue than the law of gravity is. Two, as for the comment that he's prepared to accept the teachings of the church, that's a lie. He flatly rejects the teachings of the church. Canon Law 915 forbids the reception of Holy Communion by those obstinately persevering in grave sin. That's you, Senator, and yet he marches up to the altar every Sunday and receives Holy Communion. You are absolutely forbidden by church teaching as a Catholic lawmaker for voting for abortion, and yet you side with the abortion gang nearly every time. You aren't right about the beginning of human life being a private matter, and you're lying when you say you follow church teachings. Let's hear from you some more.
I'm prepared as a matter of faith to accept that life begins at the moment of conception. But that is my judgment. For me to impose that judgment on everyone else who is equally and maybe even more devout than I am, it seems to me is inappropriate in a pluralistic society.
When life begins is not a matter of faith. It's a matter of science. When the sperm hits the egg, an entirely new and distinct, never before, never will be again human life has begun. That has nothing to do with a private belief system. Biden and these other heretical Catholics are distorting church teaching and then hiding behind their distortions and using their faith as an excuse to cloud the issue of scientific fact. Senator, that's why many atheists happily accept the scientific fact that life begins at conception, because it's a self-evident scientific truth. Based on the scientific truth, the Church's theological teachings follow, not the other way around. But you're too smart not to understand all this, Senator. Next point.
You believe that life begins at conception, and you've also voted for abortion rights.
Now, what I voted against curtailing the right, criminalizing abortion. I voted against telling everyone else in the country that they have to accept my religiously based view, that it's a moment of conception.
More lies, obfuscations, parsing, half-truths, in short, more blah, blah, blah. The senator says he has not voted in favor of abortion, but voted against making it a crime. Oh, really? When a vote comes up in the Senate, it is not a vote against making abortion a crime. The bills that come up are specifically, directly, and painstakingly detailed word for word about keeping abortion legal and expanding it. And the old tired line about forcing everyone else in the country to accept his religiously based views. Senator, turn up your hearing aid. It isn't a religious view, it's a scientific fact. And secondly, you are a hypocrite on this topic. You force everyone else in the country to accept your religiously held view about the death penalty, gun control, the war in Iraq, welfare, affirmative action, at least you try to. You're no more concerned about imposing your view on your fellow Americans than a rapist is about imposing his views on his victim. You've made a political career and held tight to your fading earthly power precisely because you have imposed your view on millions of babies in the womb. Just say it like it is, Senator. You need the votes of people who want to have sex with no consequences, and if a consequence does arise, like a pregnancy, or as your running mate Obama calls it, a punishment, they want to kill the child and move on. You need these people's votes, period. Be a man, Senator. Stop hiding behind your distorted presentation of church teaching. But as your interview went on, the lies got even bigger.
There is a debate in our church, as Cardinal Eagle would acknowledge. It's existed. Back in Summa Theologica, when Thomas Aquinas wrote Summa Theologica, he said it didn't occur till quickening, 40 days after conception.
You know, the term liar is becoming too good for you. My apologies to all of the garden variety liars out there. I'm sorry to lump Senator Biden in with all of you. There is no debate in the church, Senator. Stop saying there is. You and the rest of the leadership of the baby killer party are who is fanning the flames, and I use the term deliberately, fanning the flames of debate. To quote St. Thomas Aquinas, deliberately out of context is evil because you are doing it for evil ends. So, let me set you straight, Senator. 800 years ago, biology wasn't as advanced as it is now. People were uncertain at what point the being inside a woman turned into a human because they believed that at first it started out as a plant or a fish and then developed into a human being. Their science, their biology was off. But, and this is exactly the point, even still, abortion was forbidden. Thomas Aquinas was expressing an opinion. He is not the authority of the church. Senator Biden knows this, and if he doesn't, he should keep his pie hole shut and learn his facts before quoting people out of context. And by the way, Senator, 800 years ago, people believed the world was flat. I don't see you using that as an excuse for passing laws today. 800 years ago, people believed the sun revolved around the earth. I don't see you using that as an excuse for passing laws today. So you're lying, Senator, and you're hiding behind church teaching and deliberately quoting people out of context. And lastly, Thomas Aquinas isn't the church. The hierarchy of the church determines church teachings. The Pope, when he solemnly declares it, or when an official council of the church in union with the Pope declares a teaching. But since you describe yourself as a devout Catholic, you already know that, right? Next.
How am I going out and tell you, if you or anyone else, that you must insist upon my view that is based on a matter of faith?
Okay, all together now, one more time. It's not based on faith, it's a scientific fact. And if the leaders of the society can't insist that people shouldn't kill other members of society, then what are we paying them for?
I also don't support a lot of other things. I don't support public funding. I don't, because that flips the burden. That's then telling me I have to accept a different view.
You say you don't accept a lot of things like taxpayer funding. Have you read the position paper of the guy you're running with? You're supporting and cheering on and campaigning for a guy to be the president who you believe is imposing his views on the rest of us. Obama supports taxpayer-funded abortions. You don't. You don't because you believe it's an imposition of one's personal beliefs on society, and yet you support him. That's a hypocritical position, Senator. You won't impose your views, but you let your running mate impose his. Do you see a contradiction, Senator? Or better, do you see just this one contradiction among the hundreds you have when it comes to abortion?
This is a matter between a person's God, whether they believe in God, their doctor, and themselves.
No, it isn't a choice between the person, their doctor, and their God. You've left out the person, the baby. More liberal blather.
And what we're going to be spending our time doing is making sure that we reduce considerably the amount of abortions that take place by providing the care, the assistance, and the encouragement for people to be able to carry to term and to raise their children.
More garbage. The national Democratic leadership has no interest whatsoever in reducing the number of abortions. Why would they? These are the people who vote for them. They've had 35 years to reduce the number of abortions. They fight tooth and nail against pro-life pregnancy centers. They pour money into Planned Parenthood, your tax dollars, by the hundreds of millions of dollars every year. They worship abortion because it's been their guarantee of power. The more the people realize this, the more these devout Catholics are going to squirm. You can be sure of this. They're having buyer's remorse for ever having brought up religion in this election. I'm Michael Voris.